We are still waiting for a few people in the audience. Apparently the metro has a malfunctioning, so there is a bit of a delay at the entrance. So thank you very much everyone, COP28, those in the room and also those online. My name is Winston Beck and I'm Head of Government Affairs for the Heidelberg Materials group, and I will facilitate the discussion today. I think over the last 2-3 days we have talked a lot about the urgency and the need to decarbonize the heavy material sector, and we have also discussed the technologies and the different pathways to get us there all around the world. So today we thought we should focus a bit more on the sustainable products which already exist today, but focus also a bit around the net zero solutions and how to accelerate the deployment of those, and to make sure that there is awareness on the market, because the good news is that these solutions are around the corner, and you will hear more about that in just a second. So I'm very happy that we have a stellar panel today. Just quickly for the format for the event, we will have one keynote at the very beginning from our Chief Sustainability Officer and member of the Managing Board, Dr. Nicola Kim, and then we will move right to the panel. We had one slight change for today, is that we had a second speech actually from the State Secretary of the German Ministry for Economy and Climate Action. But unfortunately, the minister has cancelled his trip last minute due to, I think you can call it, a national budget crisis. A very good alternative speaker who is actually directly in charge for the issues we are talking today. So he will also gladly join the panel later on. The Chief Sustainability Officer of Heidelberg Materials.
Thanks, Winston. Welcome, everyone. So this is a really exciting moment. We're very happy to be here to share what we're doing to create net zero CCS cement. So first I'd like to share with you a little bit what we're doing on sustainability in general. So as you're all aware, the construction industry drastically needs to become more sustainable. We need more sustainable, smart, resilient infrastructure and buildings. So quantitative targets and measure our progress on an annual and quarterly basis. So what we've done is set 4 building blocks, and historically, as you can imagine, CO2 has the main focus for us. I mean, cement is responsible for 7 to 8% of the world's CO2 emissions. So historically, the focus in sustainability has been all around cement. But it's equally important also to get there. You need to drive circular economy. And for us, also, if we think about extraction and our quarries, biodiversity, water use is very important, and social elements. So in our social building block, we talk about safety, diversity, our workforce, supply chain, and community engagement. So these are all very important elements in our overall sustainability commitments. Now, when we talk about the net zero building block of our strategy, it's all about driving responsible for creating the CO2. So due to the reaction, 2/3 of the CO2 created in cement is due to the reaction, the release of the CO2 from limestone. We also then look at the process, so it's product, process, CCS. So on the process side, it's all about driving efficiency in how we use our fuels. So getting alternative fuels with biomass, so really reducing CO2 in the fuels we use. Thirdly, CCS. So I think if we look at the roadmap of our industry, and we work closely with GCCA and other companies in our industry, we will not get to full decarbonization without carbon capture, utilization, and storage. So in this way, we'll really accelerate our decarbonization. So we have made the commitment between 1990 and 2030 to reduce our carbon emissions scope 1 by almost 50%. And actually, we have the most ambitious target in our industry. We want to reach 400 kilograms of CO2 per ton of cement. How will we get there? Well, we want to really accelerate CCS, but equally we're working on the other two levers that I've mentioned. We've also made the commitment that we will capture cumulatively 10 million tons of CO2 by 2030. So if we think about the four building blocks I've talked about, there are two which we've combined to drive business, sustainable business. So it's very important to measure our progress in terms of how we deliver sustainable products to our customers. So we combine the net zero commitment on the low carbon with circularity, because for us, getting access to recycled materials, injecting these recycled materials with CO2 to further drive our CO2 agenda is critically important. So what we've done is we have a very transparent, robust framework on measuring sustainable revenues. We've committed to have 50% of our business qualify as sustainable revenues by 2030. And what is a sustainable product? Well, it's either carbon reduced or it's circular. The way we measure that is 30% less CO2 compared to a recent benchmark of 2020, or it's including 30% recycled materials or less materials. So we really want to drive the circularity agenda, and we see that circularity and CO2 reduction go hand in hand. So this is a picture of our Brevik site in Norway. So what we're extremely proud of is that we will be the first in our industry to bring carbon capture for cement to scale, to offer it to our customers, to build buildings, and not just lab scale, pilot scale, but really big scale. So I was at this site a few weeks ago in Brevik, Norway, and it's super exciting to see this really come to life now. So what you see here is this amine tower. It's a distillation tower where you really, where we will capture the CO2. It's 100 meters high, an enormous structure, and it's really exciting to see how this is being built connected to an existing cement plant. So really retrofitting a cement plant to capture the CO2 emissions. And with this, we will be able to offer our customers for the very first time truly net zero carbon captured cement. So right now we're in the process of communicating about this. We're building it, finalizing construction over the next year, and informing all of our customers and customers, because we really want to create a market for these products. So as you can imagine, building a CCS facility is very costly, so we rely on innovation funding from the EU, local funding from countries, and we also want to create a market because we want to accelerate the interest in these products. All right. So, this is just my last slide to explain a little bit about Evo Zero. So that is the name of our product from the carbon captured facility. We're very proud that we're a few years ahead in our industry. So we want to really, be the first mover to really, drive this this new innovation. And But it doesn't stop here. Of course, we have a whole pipeline of CCS projects globally. So yeah, really excited to be able to bring this to market. And now I would like to ask Winston to come back up.
All right. Thank you very much, Nicola. Maybe one brief follow-up question before we go to the panel. So that's very exciting. We will produce the first carbon captured net zero cement in 2025, right? But how do we actually ensure that this will also be delivered to customers around Europe?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Winston. So they assure ISO and other yeah, uh, yeah, certifications. And what DNV does is they look at the process and based on yeah, a book and claim approach, we will be able to prove that for every ton captured, a product in another country can be called Evo Zero using the book and claim approach with DNV and with blockchain. So we use blockchain technology to track the carbon emissions.
Perfect. So now we will start with the panel. I would like to introduce the speakers one by one, and I will start with Diane Hoskins, the CEO of Gensler, one of the leading and the world's largest design and architecture firm. Diane. Second, I would like to welcome Isabel Spiegel, Global Head of Environment and member of the Executive Committee from Vinci. I hope I pronounced that correctly. French and multinational concession and construction company. And thirdly, I would like to welcome Rana Gonheim. I'm not sure I actually need to introduce her, but she leads the Energy Systems and Infrastructure Division at the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, and she's also the coordinator of the Industrial Deep Decarbonization Initiative. And lastly, I would welcome Malte Bornkamp, who is the head of division at the German Ministry of Economy and Climate Action, responsible for industrial decarbonization. So thank you very much for joining us today. I would start with Diane. So maybe you could give a short reaction to what you just have heard and also tell us a bit your approach at Gensler, being the largest architecture firm. How do you promote sustainable materials in the buildings you are designing? And also, what is the reaction? How do you work with your customers in that way?
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. So just by way of a little bit of intro, Gensler is the largest architecture and design firm in the world, and we operate in over 100 countries, doing buildings, stadiums, airports, and small projects as well. And of course, we recognize our own opportunity and responsibility as we look at the work that we are designing and the impact that we can have as we raise our ambitions around decarbonization. And so 3 or 4 years ago, we actually established what I think is probably one of the most ambitious goals in the architecture and design arena, which is that by 2030, all of our projects will be net zero. And, we design over 1.5 billion square feet of buildings and interiors annually. And, we've estimated this to be tens of millions of metric tons of CO2 savings annually. How we're going to get there, we're working very hard on key aspects of that strategy. And, just to back up a little bit, as I'm sure everyone here recognizes, that when we talk about our overall ecosystem, the buildings and built environment sector accounts for about 40% of global CO2 emissions. and half of that is in operations, you know, how efficiently we can operate our buildings, and about half of that is around how we make our buildings, construction. And Nicola talked about, you know, probably about 8% of that, or 8% of overall, is the concrete and cement portion of construction. So, you know, again, these are massive numbers, and we have to address both sides of that equation, which is a challenge. I'm just going to have a commercial here for a moment. In past COPs, we've had more of a cities and built environment focus. I think this year it's been a little more fragmented, and I feel like, you know, next year I hope we're able to talk more holistically about our entire ecosystem with all members, from the demand side, the supply side, the finance side of it coming together, because that's really how we're going to get there, are through these partnerships. And that's why I'm here. That's why, you know, the voice of design and probably our clients, even real estate and owners, need to be part of this, because at the end of the day, there are great solutions being created, and we need to make sure the demand is meeting the amazing technologies that are being invested in, because at the, you know, again, that zone is where it's ultimately going to be able to scale and have the impact that is needed, with the level of certainly opportunity that we have to make a difference. So rolling back to Gensler, we are right now focused very much on material specifications, and we have launched this year the Gensler GPS, which is our Gensler product specifications system, which basically, to kind of make it simple, there's certain products we're going to specify on our buildings and projects, and some that, and others that we will not. So we are drawing that bright line between you know, where we're going to go and where we're not, and it's all around carbon. And so this conversation is very material for us, because we are just beginning to get into the part of this that is around steel and concrete, which is a far more complex specification, and a little less direct. And so we're going to really look to partners like Heidelberg, CEMEX, and others to have a very direct relationship to talk about how do we clearly specify CCS, or other types of products, of course, in Europe, probably the Nordics first. But, you know, at the end of the day, we want to be able to, you know, match what is being created in real time, not waiting 3 years down the road, but in real time. Of course, there's going to be bumps along the way, but we want to be part of that process. We're ready to roll up our sleeves and be real partners, to make sure that what we're hearing from our clients, the top tech companies, financial institutions, and other organizations, people, you know, designing the cities of the future, they want those new cities, they want those metro systems, they want those buildings to be you know, non-emitting in the construction process as well as beyond. So, you know, we want to provide push in this conversation, and, you know, again, open the door for real partnership.
All right, thank you very much. So we heard we need a holistic approach, and I think collaboration was something you mentioned a lot, and I will come back to that in a bit. But before that, maybe moving to Isabel. I mean, you are the builder in the value chain and the actual user of these materials. So how do you see the market developing, and what are the requests you are getting from the end user?
Yeah, that's a great question, and good morning, everybody. I'm glad for your question, and clearly about the title also of this panel discussion, Promoting Demand, because in fact we are sitting between our clients, mainly public, but not only public, so the one who need to build things, and suppliers. And a few years ago we said we have to be proactive. Our role is to make sure that we can deliver the low carbon materials, design, and also be able to operate the buildings and infrastructure in a more efficient way. So indeed, I would say to answer your question that first, the demand is not large enough. So there are demands, there are requests, it's progressing, so that's good side of this topic, but it's not the majority of the requests. So, and the key barrier to that is the lack of knowledge, but clearly not anymore the lack of technology. Because the IPCC is telling us that most of technology are available, and yes, that's reality for low carbon concrete. And we need to push further carbon capture and storage. Well, that's reality from what you just presented. So our role is now to make sure that we are able to scale up. So at Vinci, we took a commitment, and we have a low carbon concrete strategy, which is to use and implement 90% of low carbon concrete by 2030, and in every geographies. So we started a few years ago in France. We started through the help of some innovation and sustainability funds with some clients, but we are now at a stage where we are starting the scaling up, but it's dozens of projects, so it's not yet hundreds and thousands of projects. So that's the challenge ahead of us. But good news is that when we are pushing in this proactive way in Mexico, for instance, and in Middle East region, or in Egypt last year, we may be one of the first mover in some regions, but the client is just knowing and understanding a bit more of the topic thanks to what we can deliver. So our role is to make sure that the technology, the new materials are really something that we can promote, apply, and well, good news, we are ready, definitely. The technology is there, we are ready, and I'm going to push and asked for much more requests from the clients directly. But the requests not into every single detail of what needs to be done in terms of technicality, but more requests to reach performance goal, environmental performance goal. Meaning, yeah, well, you set up some Heidelberg, some targets in terms of thresholds, so so kilograms of CO2 per cement volume or weight. That's exactly the way it should be done. Even if our client, our architects, etc., don't know exactly how to achieve that, well, we, from the technical part, will manage to meet this target.
All right, thank you very much. So I think we have heard now from three leading forward-looking companies how to move forward and how to drive the shift to greener construction products. So let's move a bit to the political side, because we also heard a lot of the challenges, and I think some of them can be addressed with policies and with the right regulations. So maybe let's start with you, Malte. From what you have heard, what's the German approach to drive the demand for low carbon materials? And also maybe when will we see the first German public project being built with Evo Zero?
That's a very good question. But first of all, I'd like to applaud you and also the industry in general for taking this topic up. And I think it shows that we have a new level of discussion. I think 10 years ago, such a meeting would be organized by NGOs, maybe 5 years ago by government, and today it's organized by the industry, and so we don't have to push anyone. So the demand for this topic is there, and we just have to see how to bring all the actors together and all the instruments. That does mean, of course, that the governments are not in a position, a responsibility to lead the way and to create a transparency. I would like to, first of all, the overall aim is a market framework, that the new materials are competitive, like the green materials, that they can compete with others. So, Europe, of course, we have a carbon pricing approach, we have funding for production, rolling out maybe CCFDs, and we also look into regulation, but of course also procurement plays an important role here, because the government can lead the way on concrete projects. The last question I cannot answer definitely, when will there be the first project, because this is also the government, there are many players and many layers of government you have to bring together, and also the complexity of procurement issues. It's probably known by most people in this room. But I think what we start discussion is to bring together, because you have the life cycle assessment, so you look at the whole building, and that doesn't mean necessarily directly to have a certain amount of green steel or cement being procured. But now what we have been working on, led by IDDI internationally, but also we have a national stakeholder process, first to define what's green. And we've heard from the procurers that there's a niche there's no methodology for that. So we bring that in, and now we're building on that, and in order to spur more procurement directly from green materials. Maybe I leave it at that at this point, but I think we'll reiterate later.
All right. So maybe Rana, I think Malta has already briefly introduced. 40 to 60%, I think, of all concrete worldwide is being procured by public projects, by public authorities. You're working for the UN Industrial Development Organization. So what's your role a bit in driving the shift here, and what is IDDI specifically doing to help governments, also giving them the right tools to drive the demand for our products?
Great. Well, thanks for having us. And I love this. I mean, how you're bringing also the different perspectives from industry to developer to builder to government. So congrats on putting up like the panel as is. With regards to, our role and what we're doing, so we're trying to champion globally, topics related to carbon accounting and harmonization of carbon accounting principles for steel, cement, and concrete as major building materials. There are many different standards and methodologies that are used in different regions by different industries, and that is an essential point to actually drive demand more transparently and uniformly. So through IDDI, this is one of the things that we are closely working with our members. Members of IDDI are 10 governments, essentially, but UNIDO has a much wider, membership of countries, and so by engaging with these 10 governments and hopefully more join, we would actually work on transferring that knowledge to more countries, especially in the global south. The second point that we're also working on championing is, okay, how does this link also to green public procurement? Because as you said,
Exactly.
I mean, for cement and concrete, around 40% you're saying 40 to 60. I mean, okay, that's great. We're more on the conservative side, saying it's around 20% for steel and 40% for concrete and cement. And so, it is a very powerful lever for creating that demand signal. And so already at COP26, we started working on a green public procurement pledge, where we're asking governments to commit to 4 ambition levels, if you like. So first and foremost is for governments to commit to the disclosure of embodied carbon on public construction projects. And there comes the first bottleneck, because without these harmonized accounting principles and definitions of low carbon, we cannot actually progress on that. The second is alignment of procurement goals with net zero targets, because also, again, we have procurement plans, we have industrial policies, we have climate commitments, and how do all of these talk together to ensure that we're all driving towards net zero? It's this coherence that we really need. And then the third level of the pledge is for countries to commit to the procurement of low carbon steel, cement, and concrete in public construction projects. And we are leaving it up to the countries to undertake their own consultations and come back to us with, what is a realistic scenario for them, or what is a realistic threshold for them. And then the last tier is a bit even more progressive, because we're saying, we would like governments to commit to near zero steel, cement, and concrete in key signature projects. Now, the bottlenecks we see, as I said, well, definitions need to certainly be harmonized. Government procurement processes are led by, ministries or entities that are different than the entities that are working on decarbonization. There's also the issue that government procurement, generally favors the more economically feasible option, and that's not always the green option. So we really need progressive governments, and today I'm really like super excited because we have a number of governments, well, first Germany for sure, UK and Canada, who have committed already to undertake this consultation. They're going to today at 1:30 actually announce basically what is the result of that consultation. But we also have three other major countries where such procurement is quite massive in terms of encouraging the uptake in the market, that will also announce that. I mean, I think technically I cannot release that yet, but if you're interested, come to room B1 today at 1:30, and so you will see also some of the government representatives that are there to make that announcement. So I'll stop here.
All right, very exciting. So we will see a green pledge today from some of the governments to procure these products. So very good. So we have now heard from the German side, from national level, but also from the international level, some of the policy levers you're developing. To drive the demand, be it on the I think accounting side, the transparency, but also really the concrete measures. On the standards and definitions you mentioned. Maybe going back to the corporate side, and maybe Nicola, we can start with you, and then we move on. What do you see as policy drivers which will work to really increase the uptake of the demand for these products? Do you have any examples of policy measures you think could be most successful?
Yeah. As I was mentioning, we require a lot of capex, opex for such carbon capture facilities. So we have the advantage of being in the EU, where there's both the EU innovation funding, but also local funding. And now, as we roll out the next projects in our planning, Canada and the US. But what we see is we have a global CO2 reduction target. So what's important is that also in other parts of the world we are able to facilitate this transition through proper funding.
Diane, or who?
I think that at the end of the day, the goal is decarbonization. The goal is to slow down and arrest global warming. And so part of that also is building less, using less concrete, using less steel, using less of all of the building materials. And so one of the things that we're seeing is kind of the marrying of a strategy of repurposing and repositioning buildings that are no longer useful to a better future useful life. And this is happening in cities around the world. And speaking about government and the role that they can play, in Calgary, Canada, we were brought on board to look at what has been a real challenge, which is because of a whole set of economic issues as well as issues since COVID, is frankly a very large, and I've heard up to 30% vacancy of their office buildings. And at the same time, there's a challenge with not having enough housing in their downtown areas. And so really marrying a need with a problem. The city of Calgary has put together a tremendous program of providing bonds and grants to building owners to transform their buildings from office to residential. And I think there's somewhere around 15 million square feet of unoccupied office buildings that they are expecting to actually increase residences by 20% in their downtown through the transformation of those buildings. And this is actually something that is happening in cities around the world, especially in the United States, where we're seeing just a huge amount of empty office buildings. And this is frankly an economic issue because Now there's a lower tax base and a whole set of issues that are happening at the ground level, because a lot of, less people on the street, less safety on the street, less amenities, and the kinds of things that support our cities. So this is, a serious issue, and we have buildings that can be reused. So I just want to say that, part of the strategy when we look at our goal, especially in the short term, is going to be building less. And we're seeing cities really step up to the plate in terms of incentives to do that.
My point is going to be around performance thinking for a purpose. And we put the function of what we are building in front of all our discussion decision, not thinking only about the material, but exactly as you said, we're building buildings, infrastructure, so for housing, for working, for mobility, etc., and there's no one unique solution. Okay, so we have to set up on project linked to this function a mix of balanced solutions. Some of them are to put less material, clearly, and that's the design part of the project. Others are to move towards low carbon material, and you explained that you have 3 levels, process, product, and CCS cherry on the top. So it's not easy, but what is common is really the performance. So we know how to deal with economic performance and technical performance. So we should just have a common language to talk about carbon performance at the same time, but again, not linked to material, linked to the service that we are offering with what we are building. And I just want to give you one example of one project, because I strongly believed that we can be bold and on the human capability to overcome challenges. On HS2, which is high-speed 2 project, new railway from London to Birmingham, it's a railway. It will be using low carbon energy, so it's already good and in the right side of the environmental transition. But on the construction steps directly, we agreed for a target to halve the emissions. And initially, we didn't know what the baseline was. So it was just a target to, do we agree to follow a carbon reduction trajectory the same way IPCC is telling us to decrease the emission? So first thing was to spend 6 months to set up the right baseline, but then we are really working, all the team together, to try to overcome this challenge. We are not yet at 50% reduction, but close to it. And that's something really new, but that's, make the change happen, because the solutions are here existing. It's just how to put them together within the purpose of a given project.
You talked about performance, both services and products. And I think when we are discussing about low carbon solutions, we are talking a lot about the environmental performance, right? And I think one important element is to build trust in the market with our customers, and that means we need to be extremely transparent, and we need to make sure that the performance is also traceable, that we can track it. So what are your solutions here, maybe both from the policy side to make sure that all companies and all stakeholders are doing that, but then also from the corporates? I mean, do you have digital solutions for that, or what exactly is your approach in driving transparency in the market? Because these requirements are coming from the customers, right? But all the stakeholders in the value chain alike.
No, but just very quickly, yes, for sure, we are ready to provide a lot of transparency. It's not only through the tools that we're getting that, but for instance, all our scope 1, 2, 3 emissions already have the same level of assurance by our auditor as the financial statement. So that's a way, to be credible when we claim for environmental benefits.
And Rana was talking about transparency on the CO2 emissions, and I think if you look at the demand for EPD, the increased demand for also digitalizing EPDs, making them available for customers to be able to make choices. Also the digital tools which will be available to builders, to architects, to make the right choices, to pick low carbon products, and also the traceability. So for us, by using DNV for the ISO certification, for having blockchain, so having these third-party assessments is very important to create this trust, like you say, Winston, and transparency.
Yeah, I'd like to well, echo on the one hand what's been said. That's very important to look at scope 1 to 3, like the whole picture, and have common rules, or at least coordinated rules, what will be taken into account. Otherwise, it's very hard to say what's green and what's not. So that's what we are working on, especially on group materials. RDI is working on that internationally. We have a IEA working group on that, working together. And this is, well, the focus here is of this work is on the industrial transformation. And the buildings discussion is connected, but it's also another point of view, and we have to bring it together. Of course, you need a life cycle assessment, so of course it's also very important to use less material and look at other environmental issues. But what we also need is to spur industrial transformation of production of these goods. And there we need a clear understanding. And what's really important that you have also a technology agnostic view, that we have heard about plans for CCS. Also Germany now we are preparing a carbon management strategy. Actually also my unit is preparing it. So to allow for using CCS for cement especially, but there are also other solutions to that, so I think it's really important to look at all different technologies, especially in the midterm, and always re-evaluating and making sure that these standards are agnostic, that it's just about reducing emissions in the whole value chain.
Maybe a brief follow-up question on that.
Okay.
You mentioned the upcoming carbon management strategy, right? And Nicola mentioned the need for funding or financial support to get these first mover decarbonization projects for heavy materials going. So what will the German government do in that sense in order to make sure that these projects are being bankable?
It's a difficult situation today about funding, because we are in the middle of, as you said, the budget renegotiation. But no, of course we have committed, and we have programs for industrial transformation, especially green hydrogen in the steel sector, but also of course solutions for the cement sector, including CCS. And so we're looking at direct funding for CapEx, but also for OpEx. But I think this is actually, I heard Canada has a similar regulation, working on that, UK. So this is, as I said, it's always a mix of different policies here. Funding,
Yeah.
regulation, and procurement.
I see you don't want to give away too much right now.
I can't.
But Rana, maybe you want to comment on that as well. I mean, how can we make these projects investable in other parts of the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, what we see is that there's a little bit of a lack of awareness as well, and absence of both infrastructure and access to technology and more affordable capital. So here you go, 4 really critical challenges actually for companies and countries in emerging economies to actually move ahead on this and really start implementing actual decarbonization projects in industry. And so there is a need, and actually also, we're very pleased to collaborate with the German government on creating an instrument to support developing and emerging economies on taking steps on that. So essentially setting up the MRV structures that are needed to ensure that market transparency and reporting against the standards, helping them in establishing the right incentives that need to be done given to industry to actually adopt these technologies, and at the same time offering an instrument for industry in terms of support for the development of a pipeline of projects through developing feasibility studies and others. So these are all measures that we, through our technical cooperation arm, we work with developing and emerging economies and industries there as well, to really help in bringing projects. But reality is, it is slower. There is more progress now happening in the north, and what we are calling for is essentially more collaboration, both on transferring the knowledge in relation to policy, but also collaboration on the technology development.
Yeah, exactly. I think collaboration and awareness raising is a key point, and Diane, you have mentioned that already before. So maybe can you elaborate a bit? How can we make sure that there is more collaboration, maybe between the developers, the building owners, the certifiers? What can we do to drive?
Well, I want to comment on another point, but I'll just say on the point of collaboration, it just encourages me coming to COP 28, 27, 26, the amount of discourse that is happening, and I really do believe that these events have an impact, and that the relationships and conversations do matter, and much more awareness across the value chain as to where the obstacles are, where the opportunities are, and how we can support each other. But I do want to just say, again, coming from where, if I think about what's on the drawing board right now in our offices around the world, where are the largest projects? Where are the most ambitious projects? Where are the new cities? It's not in the United States and in Germany and some of these other places we've talked about. Actually, it's in China, it's in the Middle East, it's in Saudi, it's in India. I mean, this is where the new world is getting built, literally as we speak. It's what's on the drawing boards right now. And amazing, amazing ideas that are going to become reality. And I guess I just want to make sure that we're able to bring the most advanced technology in terms of materials into those projects, which, again, right now are happening and need this kind of both information, and yes, how do we account for the carbon? But also, these are also the places where we're seeing the greatest amount of carbon emissions from concrete and cement today. So how do we transform the industry in the places where the emissions are the highest, using the knowledge and intelligence and invention that is happening in places where it's actually the lowest, and finding that balance?
Perfect. Thank you, Raj. Nicola, you want to add? No. Yeah, so we are almost at the end of the session, but maybe we can open up to some question from the audience. I see already there are some hands up. Maybe start with the gentleman over here.
Thank you very much, Sebastian Peck, Compass VC. I hope it's not too technical a question, but can you comment a little bit on the potential you see for geopolymer cement and sort of using alternative methods in creating cement for decarbonization?
So geopolymers belong to the first lever that I was talking about. So product optimization, decreasing clinker incorporation. So it's also we have a project in Iceland where we use geopolymers, pozzolanic materials to replace cement, and we also have projects around calcined clay or different materials which really reduce the carbon footprint. What's special now with this CCS material is that traditionally you would reduce carbon footprint by creating different cement types like CEM3 instead of a CEM1, which is higher clinker, higher CO2. But what's special now about the product coming out of Norway is that you can basically build any structure. It's the highest strength material. So this compromise of product composition and CO2 doesn't exist for this technology now.
Further questions?
Thank you. So I am from E5, European Business Council for Sustainable Energy and Materials, and we made some studies about new materials, carbon neutral building materials or even carbon negative ones, and we found out, for example, that wood for the demand of the cities is not scalable, and so we can't go without concrete, I think. But now my question goes in the way of the man behind me. So you're looking at, as we heard, not only first at less or regional available materials, or second, as at CO2 neutrality through CCS technology. But are you looking for new materials like Heidelberg cement? I think has one with EcoCrete or this SEM3 materials. Are you looking for reducing CO2 in your materials as a product? Also, okay, this is my question.
Thank you very much. I think that was the Nicola.
So yes, we look at new different CO2 reduced products. So that is the first lever. It is a qualifier. So CCS is really at the end to get rid of unavoidable emissions. And if we look to our GCCA, our association roadmap, we have so many different levers we look at in terms of product development. I mentioned the process, also circularity. So something else that we're doing is investing in recycling companies, working with recycling companies, getting the concrete demolition waste. And one thing we can do is separate out that concrete paste, reuse it. We can take the fines, inject them with CO2. So we're not going to get enough material from virgin sources. We need to get access to recycled materials, and that will also be a key way to reduce CO2.
Maybe just very quickly to complement that, indeed what we and promote as an approach is really the right material for the right function and structure, and performance is also that. And for instance, wood, yes, clearly, but also decreases the quantity of cement, yes, because there are substitutes, but the substitute locally will not be the same in every region, country, or sub-region of the world. And we still need cement for building towers, for instance. Okay, so even if we can now build towers also for wood, it's not wood only, it's wood and steel. So you know, the right material is also part of this performance approach, and locally sourcing, the sourcing locally based is really important for us as well.
Yes, so we need a material neutral approach. We have a couple of more questions. I think we can take 2 or maybe 3 questions, and then I think we need to conclude. Let's maybe with the gentleman at the very end.
Thank you for walking all this distance. So thanks for the interesting panel. I'm Rami from Egypt. I'm the Chief Business Development Officer for a steel company called Maragbi Steel. So my question, I'm so happy that this panel is combining different aspects and backgrounds. So maybe I'm going to ask Diana and Isabella. I'm sorry, I need to put the glasses. Because you are coming from, let's say the design office and the engine that can, really drive and promote demand on the low carbon materials. We do produce, for example, steel from scrap, and our carbon emission is the lowest currently. Our other counterparties, they are trying to cope with the green hydrogen, etc. My feeling, I'm in this industry for 20 years. My feeling now, even the demand for something like the leadership in environmental and energy design is not as big as maybe 10 years ago. I have this feeling for my region. I don't know about the rest of the world, so I speak, let's say, about GCC and North Africa. I believe that some steps need to be done to promote really the demand on the green products. I mean, we are having products with the same price, typically same price. I don't speak about carbon, tax or whatever. And still, I don't see customer who is willing to buy this product. And honestly, also, I don't see big support from, let's say, the consultants, design offices, and all. No offense, but this is my view. Thanks.
I think that was to Isabel. Who wants to start?
I think we're both in agreement with you, and that's part of this entire conversation, and what needs to happen is much more communication. I mean, that's why I'm here, is to really hear what's really going on the ground, so that I can help our organization and in the design side of it, to be much more current in understanding availability, because that's a key piece of it.
And just I want to share you one thing that I was discussing with a local team based in the Middle East yesterday when I met with them. They were telling exactly what you said, that client really is not asking for low carbon material product, etc. But at least he doesn't care when we do it. So that's a win.
Thank you very much. So I think we need to conclude now. We come at the end of the event. I mean, I'm sure you can also ask some questions to the panelists if I can stay 5 minutes longer. So I think that was a very rich debate about how to promote low carbon materials, and I think it's very encouraging to see that we have very forward-looking companies along the whole construction value chain, which are first putting the materials on the market, but then also ready to work with them and to promote them among the end users, and also to see the policymakers at the national levels and the international levels to really trying to support and drive that shift. Of course, you are all very much invited to join Rana for the event this afternoon on the Green Pledge. I think we are very interested to see which companies will be there and which governments, first and foremost, will sign that pledge. So thanks very much for joining online and here, and see you soon.